the INRA webinar series dedicated to discuss trends and innovation in agriculture. I would like to welcome all of you. So first, I will give directly the floor to Dr. Aziz Yasri, the Secretary General of INRA, to start this conference and to introduce our guest speaker. So go ahead, please, Dr. Yasri.
Thank you, Dr. Badr Ben Jaloun, for creating this opportunity for me and for all the other participants to participate to this very interesting webinar topic by Professor Mohammed Boulif. Before I start introducing my friend and colleague Mohammed Boulif, Professor Mohammed, I would like first to thank him for accepting our invitation to give this webinar and to share with us his deep experience in plant pathology. I would like also to thank all the participants, or all the people from all the different countries that are taking the time to participate, and probably also to enrich the discussion by their questions and comments. And I'm pretty sure that Professor Mohammed Boulif will be more than happy to answer and to comment on the different questions. So really introducing Professor Mohammed Boulif is not an easy task, because Professor Mohammed has made huge contribution to the scientific domain in plant pathology. He has a long experience in the domain. He served in many different organizations, and he continues contributing with from all the different aspects, not only research, teaching, also advising. But everything has a start, and Mohammed also started somewhere, and he started as he earned his engineer agronom diploma from the Hassan II Institute of Agronomy and Veterinary Science in Rabat in Morocco. Very reputed organization in the sector of agronomy and veterinary science. And he then completed his PhD degree in plant pathology from the University of Minnesota in United States of America. So Professor Mohammed started his career as a faculty member of the National School of Agriculture in Meknes, which is the one of the organization of agronomic school in Morocco, where he has taught several courses in plant protection for more than 40 years. Huge experience in teaching and training future generation of agronomic scientists. He also served as a Secretary General and also director of the same school, the National School of Agriculture in Meknes, for a total period of 16 years. So management, administration of the educational agronomic science is one of his also expertise. And I had the pleasure to experience this skills in management when I worked with Professor Mohammed Boulif in the School of Agriculture, Fertilizer and Environmental Science at the University of Mohammed VI. Speaking of what, Professor Mohammed is currently a faculty member of the School of Agriculture, Fertilizer and Environmental Science of the University Mohammed VI Polytechnic in Morocco. He in the last decade, his main research concern is around to extend the agriculture best practices for integrated crop production with a main focus, on integrated pest management through farmer field school. And this is one of the huge contribution of Muhammad in the teaching domain of agriculture, which is teaching within the field. And many students in the School of Agriculture in University Muhammad have benefited from this approach when you have direct contact with the knowledge transferred from the professor within the field. So I can keep going and talking about the experience of my colleague and friend Muhammad Boulif, but for the sake of time, I will just stop here. I am pretty sure that people will find Professor Muhammad in the net, and they can learn from his experience. So I am again, thank you, Professor Muhammad. Thank you, Muhammad, for accepting the invitation. Thank you for sharing also your thought and your experience in the topic of plant pathology in general and the disease management in wheat in particular, and particularly in that nice concept within your title, which is the One Health concept. So thank you again, and thank for all the participants. And back to you, Si Badr Benjeloun.
Thank you very much, Dr. Yasri, for this nice introduction that shows us the huge experience of our guest speaker. And thank you, Professor Boulif, for accepting to be our guest speaker today in this webinar. So before giving the floor to you, Professor Boulif, I would like to mention that for the attendance, that the conference by Professor Boulif will take up to 45 minutes. And then we will have the discussion that will take up to 45 minutes as well. For the discussion, please post your written questions via the chat on MS Teams. Please fill in your name and affiliation before the questions so we can recognize you. And do not wait until the end of the conference to ask your questions. You can post your questions in English or French as well. So I will give the floor to Professor Boulif, and thank you.
Okay. Greetings to you all. I would say good morning, good afternoon. I don't know where you are, but I'm happy to be with you. And I'd like to start by thanking Dr. Aziz Yasri, the Secretary General of INRA, and Dr. Benjeloun Badr, the webinar host, for their nice introductions, kind introductions of my webinar. Let me tell you that I'm very happy to be with you today. And I feel honored that I'm inaugurating the webinar series of INRA, the National Agricultural Research Institute in Morocco, of which we are very proud because it has contributed so much to the Moroccan agriculture. I'm just happy to be with my colleagues, researchers of INRA, and I have dashed through the board, through my screen. I have seen many of my colleagues there. I'm happy to have them with us today. So I will not be talking about a new concept or something that is new, that comes out of some strange and performing research. I will be just as happy to review my experience and share it with young researchers, with colleague researchers, maybe some farmers, policymakers, because all of that is very important for me to strengthen this One Health concept throughout the systems, especially the agro systems, and especially the cereal systems in Morocco and throughout the world. So, let me just okay, let me start by this definition of One Health concept. And this comes out of the net. It's not my definition. One Health is the collaborative efforts of multiple disciplines working locally, nationally, and globally to attain optimal health for people, animals, and our environment. And this definition has been put out by the American Veterinary Medical Association, and it's not a big surprise. The plant is not there. Please notice with me. Maybe they have included the plant in the environment. Well, that's acceptable, but in my opinion, the plants deserve better because they are the primary producers of food, without which we cannot talk of any health. So I have picked up another definition, which says One Health is a collaborative, multi-sectorial, and transdisciplinary approach working at the local, regional, national, and global levels with the goal of achieving optimal health outcomes, recognizing the interconnection between people, animals, plants, and their shared environment. And here I'm happier because I have the plants here. I'm happier with this definition. But what is more important about this concept is that we must all the time constantly be thinking of the One Health concept as an opportunity of coordinating, communicating, and collaborating with each other. Okay? And this time, I will just strive to show that through the cereal chain system in Morocco and how we can put scientific knowledge to advance our agriculture and food security in the country. And of course, this is an example for to be followed in other instances, especially in African countries. So the plant health is important because plants are the primary producers of food, feed, fiber, and fuel. Always remember the 4 F's: the food for humans, the feed for animals, the fiber for textile and others, and the fuel. To me, it should be the last. We should not convert food to biofuel. Okay? There are ways that we can tap in renewable energies than to put agricultural production to produce fuels. That's my opinion. When I was studying in the United States for my master's degree during the 70s, one of the slogans of the American Phytopathological Society was healthy plants, healthy people. Well, of course, at that time, the Green Revolution was striving to produce more food for the world population, especially in developing countries. And with time, of course, we have had droughts and changing climate, and that slogan has become healthy plants, healthy planet. And we can see that the One Health concept has been already in the minds of people since the 1990s, with regard to the plant production sector. Let me just remind you that there are only few crops that nourish the world, and you have them on the top: wheat, maize, rice, barley, and then comes soybean and sugarcane. Yeah? And this underlines the importance of cereal crops in the world. And I don't think that the world will change one day. Yeah? Yeah? The cereals will remain very important, especially the wheat, as a food base and also as a commodity for international trade. With regard to Morocco, we must know that about 43% of arable land is devoted to cereals. 2 million hectares of bread wheat, 1 million, approximately 1 million hectares of durum wheat, and 2 to 2.5 million hectares of barley. Yeah? And besides the cereals, we have 70% of plantations, fruits, olives, almonds, etc. 3% pulses, 2% forage or feed, 2% vegetables, and 2% industrial crops. And we have still 40% to follow. So we can see that the huge areas cropped to cereals, but little portions cropped to really cash crops that bring the money to Morocco, or that ensure our food security in the country, and we are very happy with that. So brief, just to show when we talk about cereals, we're talking about durum wheat, bread wheat, barley, and triticale for young researchers. And let me go back to this dashboard put in 2008 by the Green Morocco Plan and its projections for the year 2020. As you can see, for the fruits and vegetables, we were sufficient in 2008, and we will remain so in 2020 and beyond. And this is a gift, a gift from God to our country. With regard to the meat, of course, Morocco has made great progress. There is a huge herd of cattle, about 7 million, if I am not mistaken. And we basically cover the needs of the country because it's not, and the the poultry industry has come in to help and help covering the population need. For the milk, pretty good coverage, but the real problems lie with the cereals, for which we usually cover only 60% of our needs. Okay? And the target for the Green Morocco Plan was to cover about 90. Well, if we have good years such as this one, and some other years, of course, where the cereal production has reached over 100 million quintals, that's fine. But on the average, we do not reach that. And the same insufficiency resides for sugar and table oils. And let me just share with you this picture. And it's the couscous, the national dish. And I think it really reflects our agriculture. Half of the dish, half of the dish is full of cereals, semolina, durum wheat, basically. And the rest of that is food, legumes, vegetables, and some meat. So we cannot, it's very important to keep that in mind. Per capita cereal consumption of Morocco is about 200 kilos per person per year. And you can find in the statistics 225, less than that, etc., depending on change in food habits of Moroccans and so on and so forth. If we take this as a standard of 200 kilos and we multiply that by the number of capita of the Moroccan population, we obtain the 70 million quintals. And that's the magic number that's being considered in the Moroccan budget. Every year, when the Ministry of Finance plans its budget, they would like to have at least 70 million quintals. When we get more, we are happier. If we get less, well, the country must think of importing cereals. With regard to the wheat health and the diseases that attack wheat, for the simplicity of communication with the farmers, and also sometimes for the students and the scholars, I divide them in 3 categories. The soil-borne diseases that are caused by fungi that are residing in the soil, that are soil inhabitants, or maybe some nematodes also. The second category is devoted to seed-borne, where the pathogens are born by the kernel, by the seed, sometimes on the surface and sometimes within the embryo, as you see here. And the third category, which is the more dangerous and the most dangerous category, is the airborne diseases, or the foliar diseases, among which we can find rust, septoria, tan spot, powdery mildew, and others. So with regard to the soil-borne diseases, let me cite few fungi, like the different species of fusarium that we find in the soil, some rhizoctonia, and these fungi, they grow in the soil and they attack the first, the internode, the seminal roots, and they can colonize the base of the column, of the cereal columns. They can rot the roots and the stem. If they do that, then we can see signs in the fields, white heads. Those white heads, they come mainly from the fact that the roots have been killed and the plants is not fed anymore. And of course, these fungi, they enter the soil, they live in the soil, but they can re-enter the soil through the seed. Over here we have wheat kernels with the black point disease. The black point disease is caused by my old friend Helminthosporium sativum, or the new name Cochleobolus sativus. And over here you can see the Fusarium roseum, as the name lets it imagine. That's the color of the fungus. So they are in the same time soil-borne and seed-borne. So isolations of fungi on culture media that we have done already in the 80s, in the beginning of our research, in the size play. And for this category of diseases that is soil-borne, my best recommendation is the crop rotation, which is the most effective method to control these types of diseases. And it is best if wheat comes after potatoes, onions, or other horticultural crops, because wheat will benefit from residual water. Usually horticultural crops are irrigated. Wheat will benefit from that residual water and residual fertilizers, because hort crops are heavily fertilized also. Horticultural crops usually leave a wheat-free soil. Of course, they are cash crops, and the farms, they strive and they make all the efforts to clean the weeds using different methods, including hand pulling, or hand hoe. And the third benefit is that horticultural crops do not favor wheat diseases. So it's really very important that we introduce crop rotation, and it is very important that wheat should follow a non-grass crop like barley, maize, and others, or oats. Okay? And we can see over here the effect of preceding crop on wheat health and vigor. On the left, you have wheat after wheat. On the right, you have wheat after food legume. And also, when we think about crop rotation, we have to keep in mind when we think about the no-till system, the semi-direct. Yeah. And yes, of course, the fungi are not inside the soil, they can be only on the straw. So if we do not practice the crop rotation, those fungi will jump from the straw to the green plants, to the young green plants at the beginning of the growing season. So this is why I would not advise to use monocropping even in wheat after wheat with the no-till system. Of course, when you change the crops, everything is wonderful. Huh? Over here, the food legume, and I guess it is the soybean after wheat in America. The crop looks greener. The same thing can be applied for wheat after a food legume. Okay. And I'd like to emphasize the concept of healthy soil, because it is at the center of the One Health concept. If we want to grow healthy crops, we must start with healthy soils. Healthy soils are the cornerstone of life for crops, because when we maintain a healthy soil, we maintain the biological diversity, we promote and enhance the food production, we also improve the water benefits, soil retention, soil water retention, and especially we sequestrate the carbon, we store the carbon in the soil. Excuse me. So the soil, for me, is part of the One Health concept, even when we're talking about wheat diseases. So the One Health concept, as developed by the veterinarians and specialists in animal science, is also valid for plant production, and especially for the cereals. So I would like to leave with you this message about crop rotation. And obviously, crop rotation will not be a key solution to every situation. It will work only for pathogens that are soil-borne or that survive in crop residue, as I have shown in the slide with the no-till and the tan spot. It is also effective when pathogens are host-specific. It will not work if the pathogen is not host-specific. And thirdly, it will work only with pathogens which produce conservation structures, survival structures, that are short-lived in soil, 1 to 3 years. If your fungus produces structures that can live for a long time in the soil, then crop rotation will not work as effectively. And the limitation is that it works. The fourth limitation is that it works only with annual crops. You cannot apply it for horticultural crops or perennial crops. You cannot pull out trees and put cereals in the place unless you have a good reason for doing that. So let's remind us that the United Nations General Assembly decided that on the 5th of December of 2014 to celebrate the World Soil Day, to raise awareness about the importance of soil for humanity in providing food and other services. So let's celebrate this year. Let's take it. Let's celebrate this year the World Soil Day in all our institutions. Dealing with agricultural research and agricultural education. IEV, INRA, UM6P, ASAF, and all the other entities that are involved in preserving, in monitoring and preserving the soil health. So I hope that you have gotten the message, with the soil being very important for the plant health, especially in the cereals that cover a large area in Morocco. Okay, let me now talk about the seed-borne diseases. The diseases that are the diseases, the pathogen of which are born either on the surface of the kernel or inside the kernel in the embryo. Okay, and it's very important to know exactly where your pathogen is located, because of this, you will use the appropriate methods of control. Some of these diseases you know already, that are called the smut diseases, the bunts on the left and the loose smut on the right. And when you see a wheat field with loose smuts like this, this black powder is composed of the spores of the fungus. At this stage, these spores may have already been carried out by the air, and so it is airborne, and it will go and contaminate healthy flowers on these healthy looking spikes. And of course, the spike will continue its development normally, and it will produce a healthy looking grain. But when you look at it in the microscope, you will see that the mycelium has invaded the infected embryo. So we must take advantage, we must take benefit of this information in order to envisage seed treatments for this type of disease. The best control method is seed treatment, as I said, and the choice of fungicide will depend on the pathogen and its location on or in the seed. And one thing that I would like you to know is that seed treatment is affordable to smallholder farmers. And in my opinion, it should be encouraged in African countries. And we should treat the seed just before planting, just before putting it in the soil, to avoid any accident of somebody consuming treated seed, and that's poisonous. So what I would suggest, that mobile seed treatment units should be promoted in Africa, where we do not have large companies of production of seed, improved and treated seed. Let's give the chances to the small farmers at least to treat the seed on their farms, or at some point close to their farm. And the picture I'm showing you, it comes from Hadcourt, where the Association of Durable Agriculture or Sustainable Agriculture has had this wonderful initiative of bringing one of these machines from Europe through a company and to treat the seed on the local level. And it has really great benefit. And you can see the start, the seed of the harvest of the farmer. Plenty of weed seeds and debris. And just by going through the machine that I have shown you, you obtain this wonderful seed treatment. The grain, where the grain is cleaned, calibrated, and treated. So the machine really cleans the seed, the original seed. It is calibrated, it will only screen the best kernels to enhance good germination in the field. And at the end, it treated the calibrated seed. And this is, for me, a big progress for the small farmers in Africa. And we should promote that. We, as researchers, educators, we should promote these types of initiatives, because we create local economies. We encourage local economies. Okay? And of course, we rely for that on young entrepreneurs. So this is a field trip of ANA students of the plant protection section. whom I have taken to Hadkur to see how the farmers are doing this. And of course, we may develop that with this activity of plant protection, useful plant protection, to other services provided to the farmers, such as fertilizers, as you see here in this picture. So the take-home message number 2 is that we must pay attention to seed treatment that can be used to reduce yield losses from seed-borne diseases, especially in smallholder farmers in Africa. And some will say, well, this is trivial information, but let's do it. I favor a good action to the marvelous speeches that we give around most of the time. Let's take action. Generalize the seed treatment throughout the continent. The second message is that seed treatment are affordable and have a sure return on investment. And the government should and must strive to generalize them, to eradicate the seed-borne diseases in our crops in Africa. And of course, the technology requires training young entrepreneurs to take the lead at the local level. And this is also the responsibility of governmental organizations, including universities. Research institutions such as INRA can do that. Schools of agriculture, ENA, IAV, ESAP, universities also. Let's spread the good word and the good attitudes throughout our continent. The third category is the airborne disease. When we talk about airborne diseases, we are talking about leaf rust over here, yellow rust, septoria, powdery mildew, stem rust, tan spot. Well, obviously, depending on the environment, you will have one disease that will predominate, that will prevail over the others. But during the past, I would say 2 decades, we have seen a huge progress of the yellow rust. I don't know. Maybe the environment has changed. Maybe our breeders did not incorporate I know that during the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s, our wheat breeders were very busy with incorporating resistant genes to septoria, to leaf rust. And basically. And I think we have overlooked the resistance to yellow rust. And I hope, my wish is that that attitude has changed now. And I hope that we have strong programs to breed for resistance to stripe rust. Yeah? And that's very important. Okay, as we know, the yellow rust and all the rust they spend half of their life cycle on the wheat or on the cereals, and the other half of their life cycle they spend on alternate hosts. It can be herbaceous or a shrub. And the case of Puccinia striiformis and Puccinia graminis, of course, we have always learned that the Berberry bush is an alternate host, le pinvinet in French, okay, on which the fungus produces Acia. And okay, you have the Pycnia on the upper leaf, but you have the Acia on the lower leaf. Okay. Well, I was teaching plant pathology for many years, as Professor Yasri said. And I was always mentioning that Berberis vulgaris is the alternate host of the rust, especially Puccinia graminis, the stem rust fungus. And maybe now it has been proven as an alternate host for stripe rust and others. And it was not until 2017 that I had the opportunity to see the Berberry bush in the Middle Atlas, in the Atlas Mountains, with Professor Yu Jing of the University of Minnesota, because he has spent all his life working on the Berberry. Yeah? So we went on a survey together to Aitiku and on the road to Imilshi. And above, we can start seeing the Berberry at an altitude above 1,500 meters. And on the road to Emilshil, we can see bushes right on the side of cereal crops. So for me, even in the 80s and 90s, we were thinking that we were getting the stripe runs from Europe. I guess now we must change. We may have our foci in Morocco. And I urge the researchers to get interested in this, in studying this this business, the biology and of course the role that is played by the Berberis vulgaris in the reproduction of the stripe rust fungi. And this is right at 30 kilometers before Emilshil. This photo has been taken. Okay, this is a close-up of the barberry bush, Épine vinette. I hope that rings the bell for so many of you who had plant pathology in French. L'autre alternatif de la rouille, c'est l'épine vinette. Eh bien, voici l'épine vinette. Elle existe bel et bien chez nous, above Zawid Sheikh and close to, on the road to Emilshil. Okay, the wonderful landscape of the Emilshil area. You can see the bushes. They grow naturally in there. They grow naturally in there. We must keep an eye on these alternate hosts. Okay, you can see a whole range of bushes of alternate hosts of the. So although all these diseases develop together on one place, well, my answer is no. The environment is one point. Yeah, it's of big influence on the development of disease, but also the host crops. The wheat, the barley, the oats, we have seen this year. Those who have been touring Morocco this year, where you must have seen a huge infection on oats in the region of Satat, and maybe in other regions too. And also we have the disease will develop on the occurrence of pathogens and pests. Well, as a plant pathologist, I have favored talking about plant pathogens, but the same thing can be done about the pests, about the insects, the Hessian fly, and all the others, the aphids, and but of course, fortunately for us, the cereals do not have. I understand there is a pest problem in certain areas, but not on the overall. Okay. On wheat, I believe it is most diseases that cause problems. And as part of the One Health concept, we must train our farmers to survey their fields. Starting January, February. Over here, I am on an outing with farmers of Hadcourt, along with the extension agents. So we must train them how to survey, how to inspect, how to monitor the disease situation in their field. It's very important. It's a good and important habit to teach African farmers. We must give that opportunity to farmers. We must go out with the farmers, show them the diseases, when to monitor, how to evaluate them, and give them knowledge on the place, so that to reinforce that One Health concept within their minds. Well, obviously, we can do that through farmer field schools. We must keep all the time in touch with the farmers. Okay? And at any time. And we must also rehearse and train and repeat our lessons, even in classrooms, in extension centers. And over here, I'm explaining the how to spot the diseases and disease development in Arabic. So we must do that in the local languages. If we keep talking French and English, while our natives, our farmers, understand only Arabic or Tamazight or Uluf or Bambara, I'm citing these examples because I would like to inspire my fellow young researchers and teachers in Africa to simplify the scientific knowledge in order to convey the real message to the farmers. Okay? Control foliar disease, we can do that, of course, through resistant varieties. And there are old concepts, you know, the monogenic, oligenic versus polygenic resistance. It has been the debate, the big debate since the 70s and 80s. And the techniques are now the gene pyramiding, gene stacking, gene deployment, etc., etc. Well, unfortunately, there was one thinker who said this marvelous phrase. Plant pathogens are shifty enemies. They can change directions at any time. So they change quickly through mutation and recombination. And that is why African local varieties, which represent long-term sustainable resistance, they must have some genes of resistance to local diseases. They are valuable, and we must preserve them for multiplication and use in an African context. Performing varieties of the Green Revolution are good, but we must expect that they will break down at some point in time. So that's the reason why we have to preserve our local germplasm, promote it. If we can improve it, that's fine. And I don't care. Sometimes they say, well, okay, your variety is not pure, it's a mixture. Well, I think that mixed cultivars or multi-line varieties or mixed genotypes, if you wish, are better for health, for human health, because they complement each other in terms of nutritional qualities. Of course, when we get stuck, when we have problems, there are always fungicides. Fungicides are fungus-killing chemicals. And given the importance of world wheat market, because as you've seen, wheat is the big crop in the world, chemical companies have invested a great deal in developing various formulations that are successfully distributed throughout the world for the past 40 years. When I was studying for my master's degree, it was something new to talk about spraying fungicides over wheat. Now the world has completely changed. The fungicide has become part of the production system. Well, when talking about fungicide, we as researchers, educators, must teach the farmers about the mode of actions of these chemicals, so they are aware. Because the consequence or the implication of that is that we must alternate active ingredients with different mode of actions to avoid selecting of fungicide-resistant strains in these fungi. Okay, it's very important. So the One Health concept, well, of course, you are going to tell me, what are you telling here, Professor Boulif? You are telling us to spray fungicides. That's no health to the environment. Yes, I agree with you, but think about the number of fungicide you spray on the wheat crops and the number of fungicide you spray on potatoes, on other horticultural crops, and fruit crops. Okay? So we must make effort in all crops. We must find alternative methods, biological methods, other methods, genetics, plant breeding, agronomy, best practices, all that we can mobilize to reach that One Health concept in our crops. Okay, well, it's good. This knowledge, scientific knowledge is good, but you have to convey it to the farmer again. You have to teach the farmer when these weed diseases occur or the probable time of occurrence, because you never know. With a changing climate, you will have sometimes yellow rust preceding, sometimes leaf rust, sometimes tan spot, and etc., etc. So that's the reason why I recommend a weekly scouting or weekly inspection of the fields. And this is essential to spot disease onset, to see when the diseases start. And at that time, of course, we must treat if we know that our variety is susceptible and that an epidemic is coming along, especially during a rainy season. Well, during a rainy season, and if as it was the time, and it was this year, of course, you have rainfall, sunny weather, and so on and so forth. That's the best. These are the most favorable conditions to disease development. So all in that, from the experience developed with the students and with research and literature, I have developed this scheme for northwestern Morocco. Assuming that the usual fungicides have a 3 to 4 week fungicide persistence in the crop. I'm talking persistence of action within the crop. Okay? So that's the reason why I have always recommended the first spray by the first node. When the wheat has reached the first node, well, it's not really precisely, but it would be mid-February to the end of February. If we have a good growing season, the crop has taken off very well, and we see that the environment is favorable to disease development, we better protect our wheat crop by starting with a first spray during the second half of February. That's my estimation. And because of these fungicides only last about 3 to 4 weeks, I'm recommending that a second spray be applied 1 month after the first spray. And I'm simplifying this information because I want to convey it in a very simple form to the farmers so that they can retain this. Alternation of active ingredients, 2 treatments during the cropping season, within 1 month interval, and with a second spray, ultimately and imperatively must be delivered at the flag stage, because it will protect the flag leaf at the flag leaf stage. The protection of the flag leaf is very important because it is the manufacture of photosynthesis of sugars that will be translocated to the spike, to the kernels, but also those fungicides that will be sprayed on the flag leaf will be also translocated to the head, and there it will prevent the head blight disease, which is a terrible disease that produces toxins on the grain that will affect human health. So the One Health concept developed by veterinarians for the animals and humans, because they share common diseases, but of course is applied to the plant kingdom, the plant production system, because some fungi will produce toxins on our crops. And that's the reason why we have to control these fungi to avoid that they produce toxins on our food. Okay. Okay, when we deliver information to the farmers, we must give all the information. I see no problem mentioning all the brands of the chemicals. And also we must inform them about the prices and the amount of money they pay for their active ingredients, for the grammage, the quantity of active ingredients contained in each container or in each volume unit, be it the liter or the gram and so on and so forth. So it's very important that the farmers should be trained to implement and reinforce the One Health concept. Not only, I'm not advocating the use of fungicides, of course, all the time, but also the fact that they know the dangers and risks of these chemicals. They should avoid them and apply them only when necessary. Okay, let's do some economics. The cost of one treatment is about 500 to 550 dirhams per hectare. You add that, yes, including the fungicide plus the application cost. Application cost is the driver, the gasoline, mazout, and all the other costs. So the cost of the treatment that I'm recommending is about 1,000 to 1,100 dirhams per hectare. And you will ask, maybe ask the question, is it profitable? Well, for that, I'm sharing with you this table in which I have to be sure that I will be losing that amount of money if I do not treat my wheat. Okay, that can be calculated depending on the yield level and on the percent loss, potential loss that will be caused by the diseases. And you can see we only reach that amount over here in the red figures when we cover the cost of the treatments only when the yields are high or when the disease is terrible. So we kind of shoot in the dark when we treat sometimes, but it is very important. It is an insurance to guarantee ourselves a wheat crop at the end. So what I'm telling here, my message is, if you are an intensive producer, if you are a big cereal producer that usually targets 30 quintals, 40 quintals, or 60 quintals per hectare, and I'm sure there are growers, cereal growers in Morocco that do more than that, you must plan on applying those treatments to your wheat. If you are a smallholder farmer with poor practice and the gain is questionable, then let's not bother the small farmers by asking him to treat. He's far better off with what he will be getting from Mother Nature. So when the yields are low, in this area of low yield, low yield potential, we must worry about other factors than disease. And yeah, I guess you are guessing what I'm getting at. Fertilizers, green manure, soil conservation. So that's also part of the One Health concept. We must worry about the health of our soils first, and we must worry about the nutrition of our crops before we worry about disease. And when we know that the farmers will be inclined to treat their crops, we must train them for appropriate use of pesticide, starting from the equipment, well-calibrated equipment, including the pumps and the nozzles. Okay. And also, well, this was an ad hoc session, but obviously the farmers do not think about protecting themselves. Over here, we are calibrating a boom sprayer, and of course, you should not allow that. You must have the appropriate clothing, and we must teach them how to drive the tractor, the speed. Of course, the speed of the tractor through the field will condition the volume of the mixture of fungicide that will be delivered. And we must always correct the pH. Most of the pesticides are effective when the pH is a little bit lower than neutrality, a little bit acid. So most of the time we find farmers that are using alkaline water. So in this instance, we must use pH correctors to have the appropriate action. And we must respect certain conditions. Avoid applying pesticides when the wind speed is beyond 19 kilometers per hour. Avoid treating when expecting rain. Most pesticides require a 3-hour rain-free period after treatment. And of course, avoid treating when temperatures are too low or too high. These are very important concepts to convey to the farmers in order to reach that One Health concept within the crops, and indeed by consequence for the human consumption. And we must always recommend the farmers to use the appropriate individual protection equipment. Most of our farmers do not do that, but we must urge them for the sake of protecting their own health. and think about the environment. Yeah? And especially when we talk to the farmer, it's very important that we use their language. Okay? Yeah? How to destroy the containers, empty them and destroying them for good, so that no one will be using them for oil, for milk, for drinking water. And this happens much too often in our continent, Africa. And we want to preserve the health of the farmers, of the citizens. So we want to prevent and avoid the reuse of these pesticide containers. Of course, the One Health concept is required to focus on farmers. That's the point, our point of focus on the farmers. But there are key actors there, the governments. The governments through the extension services, and the governments through the support they give to researchers to do the appropriate research needed by the farmers. And for me, that's very important. The One Health concept starts by this symbiosis between government agencies, extension organizations such as UNCA in our country, UNSA for other matter, of course, for health matters, and researchers at INRA, IAV, ENA, ASAF, and so on and so forth. Of course, we're not the only actors. There are the industry people, the industry people who distribute chemicals, and hopefully in the future will be distributing some biological pesticide to replace the chemical pesticide in order to preserve our environment and the human health. The take-home message number 3 is, yes, this is about, it's a multi-point. And the first point is to promote collaboration between researchers, plant pathologists, plant breeders, agronomists, etc. And not only farmers, they should be part of the game. The extension agents too, and other professionals of the industry. It's very important to have these collaborations to reach that One Health concept throughout our cereal production, our other agro-systems in Morocco, our agro-systems in Africa, and it's valid throughout the whole world. The second thing is that we must promote communication, because communication is vital for keeping all actors informed. It should flow without any friction. The third condition is to have good coordination, because coordination is essential to make things happen in the field. And lastly, we must train the youth. We must train young entrepreneurs in crop health management at the local level. We must encourage these entrepreneurs. We must give them information, educate them, give them the recipes and the knowledge, the necessary knowledge for starting their own businesses, so that we can ensure the One Health concept at the local level. It's not a researcher from UM6P or INRA or ENA or IAV sitting in his or her lab that will improve the One Health concept in farmer's field, in house, in Gharb, in other agro systems. It's the local entrepreneurs that we must educate and train, as the green generation is expecting. We must promote, encourage these young entrepreneurs to take the lead in the localities, in the diverse localities of Morocco. Okay? So, and in conclusion, I think that there is plenty of scientific knowledge that could be applied to implement the One Health concept in order to improve the livelihood of African farmers, who are the primary food producers for the continent. We must realize that without farmers, there will be no food production. So farmers should be at the center of our preoccupation, our interest. We must deploy all the efforts to train them, to improve their knowledge, to bring them to acquire good habits that they can apply in their own farms. The second thing is that African governments have the responsibility of training manpower in plant health management. I get sad when I see that some plant protection sections are closing in certain universities and education institutions because of so many people have retired because of, no, we must train, we must give the appropriate support to train plant health managers or plant health management specialists, because it is very important for us to continue producing more food and healthy food for the common citizen of Morocco or Africa and the world. Now, when I say the world, of course, our plant health management specialists must be aware of the diseases that occur throughout the world and the danger they may constitute when we import wheat from other countries where those diseases are prevalent. And the third point is that we must improve communication with the farmers, because this is essential. Innovations and knowledge should be taken out to the farmers. And that's the reason why we must keep good contact and permanent contact with the farmers to tackle the real issues that they encounter throughout our research programs, teaching programs, because we have to teach the youth what they will be expecting in their future career on the field. Okay? And I will finish by this picture with its diversity. And I will say that African universities have the responsibility of carrying out the science, which I call Borlaug's legacy. Before he died, he said, take it to the farmer. Whatever you have found in your research lab, station, whatever knowledge you have acquired from other instances, you must inform the farmer. And with that, I thank you very much for your attention, and I will remain at your disposal for any question you might have. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Boulif, for this outstanding talk. Showed us how to implement this relevant concept. So thank you very much. So,
welcome, sir.
Giving the floor to Dr. Fawzi Bikawi, the director of INRA. We have noticed that some participants have problems using the chat, including me. If you have such a concern, please raise the electronic hand in the top of your screen, and our technical team will give you the floor to ask your question orally. Thank you very much. So I will give the floor to Dr. Fawzi Bikawi, the director of INRA, whom I thank warmly for giving all the support needed to successfully complete this webinar series. The floor to you, Dr. Bikawi.
Hello everybody. Good morning. Assalamu alaikum. First of all, thank you, Dr. Boulif, for accepting to be part of our webinar series and giving an excellent presentation. Very, very informative for a very important crop, very pertinent to Morocco, to the world, to other countries too. Wheat provides 20% of the caloric intake in average and 20% of protein intake in the world. And as you have pointed out, also in terms of food for Morocco, who are one of the largest consumers of wheat. You highlighted some really very, very pertinent point, and I want to give the floor to others. I'll try to be brief. One point, one comment for your consideration. You're talking about the One Health concept, and you started by talking about the 4 Fs, and you pointed out that the last one, the fuel, is maybe not important, and I agree totally with you. I'm going to propose that we change it to another letter. It's not an F, it's an S. So we'll go for food, fuel, fiber, and soil.
Yes.
I think a part of the plant should go back to the soil. And as you mentioned, and you put some emphasis on the soil health. And I think our soils are, as you know, are not healthy because of lack of organic matter. And maybe part of the plant should go to the soil for composting and returning and keeping a certain level of nutrient in the soil to let the microorganism live and help the plant to grow again. The second comment or point I'm going to make is you gave a very good analysis of the usage of fungicides in treating disease, and I like those numbers. I'd be very interested if we do a similar analysis in terms of seed treatment. And my question is, what would be the gain, the potential gain for a farmer if we use seed treatment? The same thing for crop rotation. Are there some models that will tell us if we do crop rotation, what is the potential gain we do? In my view, it's important to have these quantitative numbers because they will help us do and maybe direct the research to certain areas so we go to self-sufficiency. I personally believe that wheat production, Morocco can be self-sufficient. As you said in your last conclusions, and I agree totally with you. We have all the technologies that exist that can give us a high yield. We did improve the yield of wheat. 10 years ago, the average was about 10 quintals per hectares. We are about 20. I think we can go to 30 in 10 years or maybe even sooner. All the recommendations you have, plus all the new technologies that we are going to have, and that includes genetic improvement, introgressing new genes into wheat, using precision agriculture, improving soil health, implementation of direct seeding. All of these will help us get to that yield. And again, I will finish by saying all the information you gave is really pertinent. I hope there were a lot of students, a lot of PhD students and young researchers who attended and who can learn from your presentations. That's really important and help them in their research and come back to you with more questions. I will stop at there. And again, thank you, Dr. Boudi, for an excellent seminar.
You're welcome, sir. It's my privilege. Well,
the floor to you, Professor Boudi. Okay.
Yeah, I'm delighted that, yes, Professor Fawzi Bakawi is appreciating my presentation. And I like, yes, of course. With regard to seed treatment, you know, we were believing, that's how my master's degree has started in plant pathology. Morocco needed plant pathologists in 1973. That's how we went to Minnesota. I went with another colleague who was a former INRA researcher. May God have him in his mercy, Dr. Mustafa Sadawi. I don't know whether that rings the bell, but there is another colleague who is still living, Dr. Abdurrahman Al-Yamani, who was our specialist in seed pathology. Seed pathology. Regarding the seed, yes, of course, the seed treatments, for me, they are always beneficial. We must treat the seed. Of course, we must select the fungicide or the active ingredient, because as I have explained, depending on the type of fungi and pathogens that you are targeting. Some only are on the surface. In that instance, we can use cheap fungicides that do the trick. If you have the fungi inside the embryo or inside the kernel, then you must use some systemic fungicide that penetrate the kernel and to reach the mycelium. But all in all, my estimation is that the seed treatments are beneficial. At least we will eradicate those diseases that are still hampering our cereal production. And you know, sometimes it's psychological. when you go around Morocco and you see some cereal fields, wheat fields or barley fields, and you see that head, there's some smutted heads, and you see, well, if you make your calculations, it's 1,001%. So mathematically, it's not, but visually and psychologically, it's important to have a clean crop. And the seed treatment usually are very low in cost. In the 70s and 80s, they were about 30, 40 dirhams. I would expect that today, this cost would be 80 dirhams or 100 dirhams to the quintal. It is still, if you plant 1 quintal or 1 quintal and a half to the hectare, 120 kilos, for example, or 150 kilos, it's still 100, 120 as compared to the foliar fungicides, which cost 600 per hectare. So for me, the seed treatments are economically feasible. You can do that in your hardware, in your storage house. You can do that in a place. And as I'm recommending those small machines to facilitate things for the smallholder farmers throughout Africa, throughout our country as well. And it's very important. I think that's very important. As for the crop rotation, we do not need to estimate. We see it by the naked eye. A wheat crop after a food legume is far better looking than as a wheat after wheat. Of course, there are experiences in the USA, the monocropping plots and so on and so forth, where there might be some no effect of crop rotation, but crop rotation is, for me, is very important. The only limitation we have in Morocco is that we have 5 million hectares of cereals, but the alternate rotating crops are so little. You see, if we take out the perennial crops, that is immobilized land. If we take out the horticultural crops, and I'm still recommending that we insert some wheat in the horticultural systems to improve the health, the soil health for the horticultural crops, and to benefit of some wheat and reduce the disease incidence for horticultural crops. I hope I have answered some of your questions, but I am happy that you have asked them. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. I do have to leave in 10 minutes, but again, I really appreciate the webinar and wish all the best, and hopefully there will be, the discussion can continue.
Thank you very much. My privilege.
Thank you, Dr. Bikawi. Thank you, Professor Boulif. The next question is from Muha Farrahi, researcher at INRA. The imports are rising since the 70s, even with good productions. Example can be seen in the ONICL data. The bottleneck as advanced by the industry is the poor quality of our national production. What do you propose to increase the national wheat production use and therefore reduce wheat import? What is your thought on this issue?
Yeah, I am happy. Hello, my friend, Dr. Farrahi. How are you doing? Yes, of course, this is a question that is very well expected from a high-profile researcher and professional of INRA. Well, of course, yes, we will continue importing, unfortunately, because of our population. Our food needs are also increasing. And if we do not change our food habits, eating that much bread, of course, we will continue importing wheat. It is the amount that we import will be at stake. For example, this year, the harvest is good, we will import less, but we'll still import some. Because the industry, we are in a liberal system. And the industry people are looking for certain genotypes, certain quality. Well, that's good for the international trade. But we must promote, we must do what is necessary to promote the quality in our local production of wheat. And we must study this closely. What is it that makes that our wheat quality is lower than that produced in Germany or in Canada? Because we import very much from Germany, Canada, maybe from France, to improve the quality of our flours, our industry, our milling industry. That's very important. But nevertheless, I'm happy that we are producing enough, especially in good years like this year. And we must strive to sustain this production in the face of climate change, because our greatest enemy will be the climate, the drought. That's our biggest enemy. And we don't know. But we must tackle the quality issue very closely. And there is plenty of bright researchers in food technology at INRA and other institutions. We may ask them. They might give us the right answer than the one I'm giving here. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Professor. His second question from Muha Farahi is the variety of mixtures can reduce disease incidence.
Yes.
Which could interfere with uniform quality of the final production, and which can limit the industrial use if the required standards are not achieved.
Yeah. Well, I'm not fooling myself. You see, the industry will deal with the big producers, okay? But the mixtures that I'm talking about, if you want to avoid fungicide, pesticide, they're good for smallholder farmers in the mountains where progress has not been reached. And they do not need to sell their product to the milling industry. They can sell it as a biological product, which is looked for by the consumers nowadays. You know what I mean? Mixtures are fit for smallholder farmers in the mountainous areas. I'm not advocating the pure line variety for local smallholder farmers, because those pure line varieties might be struck by the disease, by the yellow rust, by other diseases. What I'm advocating is the mixtures for smallholder farmers in mountainous areas, isolated areas. Let's not bother them with pure line varieties. Let's have them use the local resources that had proven to be tolerant to diseases. And I don't care about the industry as long as they get healthy bread, healthy couscous, organic couscous, organic food, organic milui, and so on and so forth. That's my point of view. Progress is not only the pure line or the sophisticated food that we know of in Europe or in modern food systems. The food is a natural product, and we must encourage local farmers to produce enough for themselves, because if we produce locally, they do not need to go and buy food from the market. And you know, the cost of transport, it contributes to climate change and so on and so forth. So I'm an advocate for promoting the local production. And one of the ways, I'm not discarding the mixtures from my picture. It's one possibility for us. Use your mixtures, your local mixtures that have been used for decades, which have given good food for the local population. That's my point.
And this answers also the question from Madame Hilali Hamida, who asked about this question, this issue also about mixed variety and industry. I will give the floor to Haibut Hajar.
Sorry, the point, I have one point to make in terms of mixtures, provided that the components have the same maturity and the same height. You know why? Because the plant competition in the field can be strong. So you need to have those plants uniformly. You should not have high and low and so on and so forth. You should have genotypes that look phenotypically similar, that mature around the same time, in order to be harvested at the same time. That's one addition that I wanted to make.
So I will give the floor to Haibut Hajar, who raised her hand. Please introduce yourself before asking your question, if possible. But please go ahead. Your mic is okay now. Haibut Hajar. So
okay, she can write her question. Can she write her question?
Because we have some problems with the chat, maybe she cannot do that. So
okay.
We'll go with the following question before going back to her. Okay, the next question from Hajjaj Badr. He thank you for your excellent presentation. In mountain areas where there are small farmers with low yields, is it worth to apply low fungicide treatments? No, fungicide treatments, taking in account that the cost of treatments is more than 1,000 dirhams per hectare.
No, he did not follow my table.
So,
I'm not in favor of applying fungicides in the smallholder farmer of the mountains. What I'm recommending is that use Mother Nature, use the force of Mother Nature. The only fungicide treatment that I'm recommending for mountainous areas is the seed treatment, the low-cost seed treatment, because you can treat a small amount of seed before planting. But I'm not in favor of applying fungicides in the small farmers' fields in the mountains. Okay? Unless you are dealing with a big farm. Unless you are dealing with a big farm on the plateau, for example. That's another story. But for smallholder farmer, there is no sense in applying fungicide in the field, except for seed treatments. Seed treatments are beneficial. We can apply them. Okay?
So it's linked to the question from Sliman Khayi, who is researcher at INRA also. So are you convinced that the solution to plant diseases is this disclosure of massive chemical control practices, pesticides, among farmers? What about the harmful impact on the One Health vision? So, yes.
Yes, of course. Of course. What I'm saying is, this is a good point. If I'm recommending the application of fungicides when the cereal crop is at risk. What is better, to have some food or to not have any? Yeah, we are before the eternal choice, the eternal choice of dying of hunger or dying of some insufficiency in the food. So what I'm saying is that we must apply fungicides when the crop yields are promising. For high yielding potentials, I'm recommending the fungicides at 2 treatments per cropping season. Think about the number of fungicides and pesticides that you apply on potatoes and apples. It's not comparable at all. And those fungicides, they disappear somewhat. They are biodegraded. And yes, it's a balance that you should find between the risks and benefits of these treatments. And usually for cereals, I think their benefits surpass their risks.
Thank you. So the next question from Dr. Omar Idrisi, who is a researcher at INRA Stat. He's asking how realistic is combining disease resistance and adaptation that we have in the nature, traditional varieties and land races, with improved traits developed from the modern plant breeding, screening for resistance in composite varieties, assuming that these varieties would be rather admixed than uniform.
Yeah, well, he's the plant breeder. He should find this answer. yeah, I mentioned a number of techniques, gene pyramiding, gene stacking, and so on and so forth. I don't know whether the plant breeders are still doing that. But this is what the breeders of the 70s and 80s were busy with. And I think we should not abandon these old methods. And we should keep on doing that. We should keep on doing that. And it is a service that we give to our citizens and our farmers, and we are paid for that. And we must do some research about that. I believe biotechnology is very important. You can use biotechnological tools to bypass these difficulties. Yes, and today's plant breeders are more informed than myself in this domain. But my point is, keep a diversity in your wheat genotypes that are planted at the small farm level, okay? Because they do not tolerate the fungicides. Keep the diversity to drive the pathogens astray. I don't know, there was an article in the scientific literature, how can we lead the pathogens astray? Astray meaning outside of the track, disoriented. So by having so many genotypes in one crop, in one field, you have the chance to have something produced when some genotypes are struck by disease, and you will still have some production instead of having zero with a modern variety that is uniformly susceptible to diseases. Okay, that's my point. For the industry, we have to keep keep aligned with the industry, because if you are a producer, you will abide by the contract of the producer. So you have no choice to plant in those mixtures that I'm recommending for the smallholder farmers in mountains. You have to plant the variety that they require for their pastry, their cookies, or their bread. Okay? You have no choice because you have a contract.
So, Haibut Hajar, your hand is raised, still raised. Do you still want to ask your question orally? So if not, I will go ahead with the next question. So we will have only two more questions.
No problem, sir.
Madam Hilali Hamida from INRA.
Can you hear me?
So I will go with the question from Madam Hilali Hamida first. So she's asking, as a researcher, which research domain you recommend to improve our knowledge in this field?
Well, I'm recommending to improve our knowledge in all fields. It's One Health concept. You know, the plant pathologist must advance hand in hand with the plant breeder, hand in hand with the wheat technologist, hand in hand with the food industry specialist. That's the One Health concept. We must all agree on the same thing to promote. And I'm promoting that type of interdisciplinary research. Of course, once in the 80s, I have been asked, what is the best specialist? My answer was this: the best specialist is the one who masters very well his or her domain and has the capability of communicating with other specialists. So this is what I'm recommending. Every specialist should strive to get the best in their domain, but should keep their eyes open to what other specialists are doing and cooperate with them. It's the whole thing about One Health concept. It's the cooperation between specialists to reach the same target, a good, profitable, healthy crop that is nutritious to the common citizen and that preserves the environment.
I'll give the floor to Haibut Hajar. Please unmute your mic and go ahead.
Hello, I'm sorry for the technical issues. So I'm Hajar Haibut. I'm an engineer from IAV Institute, and I currently work at the Department of Environment. So first of all, I would like thanking Professor Boulif for this pertinent presentation. And I would like to ask the following question. So we all know that the One Health initiative is a very ambitious one. But in a world where the prominent concern is ensuring food security, and with all these arising stresses on natural resources, how can we adopt this particular approach in developing countries where we know that smallholder farmers are always reluctant to these new approaches? Because we all know that One Health includes the crossing between environmental concerns and yield, but they always provide low yield. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Well, thank you for this question, and I'm happy to see agronomists working and serving other departments, especially the environment, and that's good. That's good. We must be agronomists. They must be polyvalent. And the response to your question is that, of course, in Africa, farmers will be reluctant to use these technologies, especially, yes, of course, but it is the responsibility of the researchers in every country to establish good dialogue with the farmers and go with the farmers' concern. I'm not saying that the researchers should press their recommendations and their opinions on the farmers, but they should live with the farmers, and they should they should work with the farmers closely so that they know what are their main concerns, and then try to tackle them in a scientific way. If their situation requires the use of some pesticide, I will not hesitate, especially for seed treatment. If yes, the environment, of course, they're hoping now. We're talking about synthetic chemicals to treat the seed. We hope that in the future, our biotechnologists or microbiologists will produce formulations of seed treatment that are using bacteria, plant promoting rhizobia, and so on and so forth, that will help in to stem in the stemming of certain diseases that are related to the seed and the soil, and maybe to the aerial diseases, to the foliar diseases. So I'm not saying that, yes, I'm not promoting synthetic chemicals for the sake of promoting. I'm saying, but because they are here, they are available, we can consider the option of using them, and rationally, in a wise way, and only when necessary, to enhance the food production in our developing countries. And that's what I'm saying. Of course, if I can do without, that's even better. And the key is to work closely with farmers and see what their needs are and what we can do for them. That's my recommendation with the African scientists, be it plant pathologists, plant breeders, agronomists. That's my opinion. Let's be a servant to the farmers, bring in the scientific knowledge, and let's do that on their fields through farmer field schools and demonstrations. That's what I'm saying. Okay.
So thank you, Professor Boulif. This is the last question. Thank you very much. So for this, for the conference, and also the very fruitful discussion, which showed us the importance of interdisciplinary and convergence of efforts from different actors to reach the purposes of the One Health concept. Thank you very much. It was really a pleasure for us to host you and to be with you in this conference. So
thank you, sir. All the pleasure is mine.
Let me know just to introduce the next webinar. So my colleague Butaina will share the flyer of the coming webinar that will be held in 2 weeks. The same hour at so in Thursday, 16th of September at 10 a.m. Moroccan time, UTC +1. So, my colleague Butaina, please. So we will have another outstanding topic that is useful for our agriculture and the sustainability of our productions. It will be entitled Environmental DNA for a Sustainable Agriculture. It will be given by Dr. Pierre Taberlet. He is a senior scientist at CNRS France. He is an outstanding scientist. He was the winner of the 2007 Molecular Ecology Prize. So we will be glad to have him giving his webinar as you, Professor Bolif, and I hope to see you there, all of you.
Inshallah.
Inshallah.
I will mark my calendar now.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and thanks to the attendants, to the participants of this webinar. Thank you very much. See you in 2 weeks.
Yes. Bye bye. Bye bye everyone.
Bye.
إلى اللقاء.
اللقاء. السلام عليكم.